Welcome to the show. Let's take a look at the Boeing fiasco and what's currently going on with the aviation industry. Recently, a whistleblower who was a Boeing employee preemptively said that he didn't kill himself, but he was found dead from an apparent suicide. Grounded planes don't make for good sales or good PR. And Airbus, the Boeing competitor, is looking really good right now. Boeing is prioritizing production over safety, and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, agrees. So let's take a look. Boeing whistleblower John Barnett found dead in the U.S. A former Boeing employee known for raising concerns about the firm's production standards has been found dead in the U.S. John Barnett worked for Boeing for more than 30 years, 32 I believe to be exact, before retiring in 2017. In the days before his death, he had been giving evidence in a whistleblower lawsuit against the company. Boeing said it was saddened to hear of Mr. Barnett's passing. The Charleston County coroner confirmed his death to the BBC on Monday. It said the 62-year-old had died from a self-inflicted wound on 9th of March, and police were investigating. Mr. Barnett had worked for the U.S. plane giant for 3 decades until his retirement in 2017 on health grounds. From 2010, he was employed as a quality manager at the North Charleston plant. The facility builds the 787 Dreamliner, a state-of-the-art airliner used mainly on long-haul routes. In 2019, Mr. Barnett told the BBC that under pressure, workers had been deliberately fitting substandard parts to aircraft on the production line. Very dangerous indeed. He also said he had uncovered serious problems with oxygen systems, which could mean 1 in 4 breathing masks would not work in an emergency. Can you imagine being on one of those flights? He said soon after starting with the work in South Carolina, he had become concerned that the push to get new aircraft built meant the assembly process was rushed and safety was compromised, something the company has denied. He later told the BBC that workers had failed to follow procedures intended to track components through the factory, allowing defective components to go missing. He said in some cases, some substandard parts had even been removed from scrap bins and fitted to planes that were being built to prevent delays on the production line. He also claimed that tests on emergency oxygen systems due to be fitted to the 787 showed a failure rate of 25%. Very alarming indeed, meaning that 1 in 4 could fail to deploy in a real-life emergency. Mr. Barnett said he had alerted managers to his concerns, but no action had been taken. Boeing denied his assertions. However, a 2017 review by the U.S. regulator, the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, did uphold some of Mr. Barnett's concerns. It established that the location of at least 53 non-conforming parts in the factory was unknown, and that they were considered lost. Boeing was ordered to take remedial action immediately. On the oxygen cylinders issue, the company said that in 2017 it had identified some oxygen bottles received from the supplier that were not deploying properly, but it denied that any of them were actually fitted on aircraft. Very bad marketing, very bad PR strategy. They need to call me. After retiring, he embarked on a long-running legal action against the company, accused it of denigrating his character and hampering his career because of the issues he pointed out. He was a good Samaritan. These charges have been rejected by Boeing. At the time of his death, Mr. Barnett had been in Charleston for legal interviews linked to that case. He gave a formal deposition in which he was questioned by Boeing's lawyers before being cross-examined by his own counsel. He had been due to undergo further questioning. When he did not appear, inquiries were made at his hotel. He was subsequently found dead in his truck in the hotel car park. Sketchy indeed. Speaking to the BBC, his lawyer described his death as tragic. In a statement, Boeing said, "We are saddened by Mr. Barnett's passing, and our thoughts are with his family and friends. Money can buy anything." His death comes at a time when production standards at both Boeing and its key suppliers, Spirit Aerosystems, are under intense scrutiny. This follows an incident in early January where an unused emergency exit door blew off a brand new Boeing 737 MAX shortly after takeoff from Portland International Airport. Extremely scary indeed. A preliminary report from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board suggested that 4 key bolts designed to hold the door securely in place were not fitted. Very alarming. Last week, the FAA said a 6-week audit of the company had found multiple instances where the company allegedly failed to comply with manufacturing quality control requirements. And it goes on. Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun is to step down in wake of ongoing safety problems. CEO Dave Calhoun said he intends to leave the beleaguered company by the end of the year in a major shakeup of the company's leadership. Boeing's chairman, the head of the commercial airplane unit, are also leaving. The chairman, Larry Kellner, will not stand for re-election as a board director. The board has elected former Qualcomm CEO Steve Mollenkopf to succeed him. The company also announced that Stan Deal, CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes, is retiring. Stephanie Pope, Boeing's chief operating officer since January, is taking his place effective immediately. Boeing has been buffeted by more than 5 years of problems with its airplanes, including 2 fatal crashes of the 737 MAX in 2018 and 2019 that killed 346 people, and most recently, a door plug that blew out the side of an Alaska Airlines 733 MAX in January, leaving a gaping hole in the side of the plane. Can you imagine being on that flight? The problems have led to multiple groundings for safety issues and more than $31 billion in cumulative losses. In a letter to Boeing employees, Calhoun called the Alaska Airlines incident a watershed moment for Boeing. You don't say. "The eyes of the world are on us," he said, in announcing his departure plans. "We are going to fix what isn't working, and we are going to get our company back on track towards recovery and stability." The decision to leave was 100% his choice, Calhoun said in an interview on CNBC. I'm not so sure about that. But Calhoun has become the focus of many who are critical of the way Boeing has been run in recent decades and the string of safety and quality issues. "He's the very best CEO that Airbus has ever had," said Richard Abulafia, Managing Director, Aerodynamic Advisory, and a leading aerospace analyst, recently referring to the advantages gained by Boeing's main rival during his tenure running Boeing. His departure also comes in the face of widespread criticism of the company by CEOs of many of the world's major airlines Boeing depends upon to buy its planes. CEOs of numerous airlines had asked to speak directly to the Boeing board last week, which Calhoun tried to characterize as a normal process, even if it's rare for customers to speak directly to directors. As to why Calhoun decided to stay on through the end of the year rather than leave immediately, he said to CNBC, "We have another mountain to climb. Let's not avoid what happened with Alaska Air. Let's not avoid the call for action. Let's not avoid the changes that we need to make in our factories. We will get through that," he said. "I've committed myself to the board to do exactly that." Continuing problems with airplanes at Boeing. The airlines are upset both by the quality of the planes they are getting from Boeing and the fact that Boeing won't be able to deliver the planes they were counting on this year as passenger demand continues to surge to record levels, where post-pandemic people are traveling again. Michael O'Leary, CEO of Ryanair, Europe's largest airline, and one that flies only Boeing 737 planes, told CNN last week that whenever it takes deliveries of Boeing jets, we spend 48 hours going through the plane checking it for errors, omissions, or anything else. Bizarre. And O'Leary said while it hasn't found anything major in those checks, it regularly finds minor problems such as tools under floorboards and missing seat handles. That shows, I think, a lack of attention to detail quality issues at Boeing. Very understated. Ryanair issued a statement saying, "We welcome these much-needed management changes in Seattle." United Airlines, which flies Boeing jets for more than 80% of its mainline fleet, has expressed disappointment in quality issues at Boeing and a delay in its scheduled deliveries. The airline is a primary customer for a stretched version of the Boeing 737 MAX, known as the MAX 10, but Boeing's inability to get the plane certified to carry passengers is also causing headaches. Scott Kirby, CEO of United, described the Alaska Airlines incident as the straw that broke the camel's back for its plans to get the MAX 10 this year as planned, and it is now looking at possibly buying jets from Boeing rival Airbus to take the place of the MAX 10s it had ordered. It is a great PR opportunity for Airbus. They're doing things right. But it's difficult for airlines to shift to Airbus, which has a long backlog of jets it is already committed to build for its existing customer base. Any Boeing customer shifting to Airbus could find itself waiting until 2030 or beyond to get its planes delivered. A long time indeed. And operating two types of aircraft of the same class is costly, since pilots are certified to fly specific aircraft, and most cannot shift back and forth between an Airbus and a Boeing without training. I didn't know that. And the airline needs to keep a supply of expensive spare parts on hand for every type of aircraft it operates. Alaska Airlines CEO Ben Minucci estimated recently it costs his airline $75 million to $100 million a year to operate both Airbus and Boeing single-aisle jets after it merged with Virgin America, which is why it got rid of its Airbus jets after the merger was complete. And Alaska is a smaller national airline, only America's fifth largest. Larger airlines face even greater costs from splitting fleets between manufacturers. Facing numerous safety probes, the Boeing 737 MAX 9 was grounded for 3 weeks after the Alaska Airlines incident, as airlines completed inspections of their own planes' door plugs. Minucci disclosed that many of his planes were discovered to have loose bolts, although he did not mention missing bolts. It almost sounds safer to ride the bus nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. An audit of Boeing procedures by the Federal Aviation Administration in the wake of the Alaska Airlines incident found numerous non-compliance issues. The agency gave the company 90 days to come up with a plan to fix its safety and quality issues. But the probes of Boeing aren't limited to the FAA audit. A preliminary investigation found that the plane left the Boeing factory in October without the 4 bolts needed to keep the door plugs in place. While the NTSB has not identified who was at fault for the missing bolts, NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy criticized Boeing for not providing the agency with the documentation for who handled the installation of the door plug. Calhoun told investors in January after the incident that we caused the problem and we understand that. Whatever conclusions are reached, Boeing is accountable for what happened. And Boeing is also facing an investigation by the Justice Department, which could open it up to criminal liability and upend a controversial deferred prosecution agreement the company reached in January 2021 to settle charges it defrauded the FAA during the original certification process for the 737 MAX last decade. It was days away from having that probation period end when the Alaska Air incident happened. The company has also had problems not related to the MAX during Calhoun's time in charge of Boeing, including a couple of halts in deliveries of the 787 Dreamliners, one of its main wide-body jets, due to quality issues with that plane. Finance, not engineering background. Calhoun, 66, a longtime board member at Boeing, became chairman of the company in late 2019 when the board stripped his predecessor Dennis Muhlenberg of that title. He was tapped as CEO after Muhlenberg was ousted in December of that year, starting in the job in January 2020. Boeing was once known as a company that put engineering excellence ahead of its financial performance and produced planes that were the gold standard in the industry. Critics of the company say that focus has changed in the last 25 years, citing the 1997 merger with competitor McDonnell Douglas for the shift in focus on saving money. It's not a good idea to save money with aviation or cut corners or risk passenger lives. Calhoun is one of the executives since that time with no engineering background. Amazing. Having served as senior managing director and head of portfolio operations at investing firm the Blackstone Group, as well as CEO of Nielsen, the measurement company, after 26 years at General Electric. Calhoun's tenure began about halfway through a 20-month grounding of the 737 MAX due to a design flaw that was determined to have caused the two crashes, and just before the COVID pandemic broke out globally, causing a near halt in air travel and massive losses for the airlines Boeing depends upon to buy its planes. We were all stuck at home. Asked about what he would like to see in his successor, Calhoun told CNBC that, "I want somebody who knows how to handle a big, long cycle business like ours. It's not just the production of the airplane, it's the development of the next airplane. It will be a $50 billion investment. I would like somebody who clearly has experience inside our industry." Lastly, shares of Boeing, which have lost more than 26% of their value since the start of the year, were 4% higher at the market close recently. But they soon lost most of that gain and closed slightly above 1%. Keep it locked, and thanks for stopping by.